Good morning. It's Friday the 8th of May 2020. If you're in the Western Hemisphere and some parts of the Southern Hemisphere, quite possibly VE Day, which won't mean a great deal to anybody that's not from there. But yeah, there's the signing of the end of World War II, at least in Europe, leaving only the war in Asia, or the war against Japan, who had as yet refused to surrender. And whilst, if it was a celebration of we're not going to do that again, we're not going to oppress people, we believe that the concept of genocide is, to be forever reviled in our history, and people were going to just, sit in quiet contemplation and decide that, we should always step in when one group of people decides to, annihilate another group of people based on perceived differences, but yeah, that's not what's happening. Hold on. Yeah, so that's not happening. So yeah, no, what we're celebrating is, the typical lowest common denominator. Let's not think about it. Let's give it the smallest possible amount of thought that we possibly can. We won. We won. In the way that they get people to celebrate the fact that Boris Johnson got elected, or Donald Trump got elected, or any one of the current group of strong men that are currently running the planet got elected. Nah. You need that. We won. We won. This sort of Cro-Magnon response. But if you look at the lives of working people, depressingly, what working people need in order to give a shit about their fellow humans is a good healthy dose of fascism, where lots and lots of them die, and then they realise that, fascists aren't working in their best interests at all. So yeah, it feels altogether too much like a National Front rally, this whole thing. And whilst I can mourn the loss of millions of people, and whilst I can think about it and think, generally speaking, these wars are started by wealthy people who think they should be in charge against other wealthy people who think they should be in charge, and when they have a difference of opinion, they're quite happy to murder people they've never met in order to make a point, which is essentially what war is, along with a nice sideline in becoming super rich from profiteering from war, from manufacturing weapons, and owning the means of production generally. So yeah, and let's make it quite clear, you don't have to have a piece of paper to say you own it to effectively have ownership of something. The very idea that there is a superior moral authority that exists to tell you what to do with your one blink of existence on this planet and in this form is an anathema. I do not understand. That's why one of the things that, kept me sane in the face of things like that is Professor Bernardo de la Paz in The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And he says, I am free. Any laws that you care to bring in that I can abide by, I will abide by. Anything I cannot abide, or any law I cannot abide, I will break. Which is you know, should be the battle cry of anybody that considers themselves a rational anarchist. No, by which I don't mean anarchy. I mean, you know, you accept the fact that you're in charge of your own life. And whilst Heinlein was coming from a very middle-class American competent man type place, where the competent man always succeeded, but that's not, you know, that's not an unlearnable lesson. You know, how does someone oppress you if you are competent? How does someone oppress you or manipulate you if you read and if you are well informed? You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you have to be able to discern truth from lies. You have to be able to, you know, supply those things that you need for yourself. Wow. These walks are like turning into like Thought for the Day on Radio 4. Thought for the Day. Fuck the police on Radio 4. Yeah, so pretty weird. I mean, could you really argue that anybody that took part in a major war in history was doing so because they truly believed in what they were doing? And if they believed in what they were doing, were they misinformed or were they victims of propaganda? Really? You know, Germany was an ideal example of what happens when propaganda gets out of hand. But there again, so were the Allied countries. The sinking of the Lusitania to get the Americans into the First World War. You know, the Huns stabbing babies and putting babies on bayonets and raping nuns, which always seems to be. You ever hear about the murder of children or the rape of religious people, you know, or their murder of gentle people, you know, all that sort of stuff? That's used as propaganda on both sides as often as possible because it plugs into our basic, you know, protect the elderly, protect the children thing that we have, and they know it. It's interesting how the First World War and then the Second World War happened during, if you look at the business world, the age of advertising. So yeah, the age of advertising coincided with the two biggest wars that we've ever had on this planet, and continues to play. Advertising continues to play a massive part in how we view war. Oh, look at that. That's interesting. Let's see if I can get you closer so I can show you what I mean. The waterfall has collapsed. I wonder whether that's human or, you know, as far as I can remember. I know I can only look through a little screen and use my eyes, but that seems a lot less steep than it was when I was last here. So there is a dreary connection between the way people are emotionally manipulated by the reporting of events and what they're prepared to die for. Now, arguably, there are a lot of things all around the world that it would be worthwhile dying for, but very few of them turn a profit. Oh, I've gone all cynical. Sorry. Anyway, let us look at the other side of said coin. I was musing on this yesterday, so this is thought for 2 days. 2 days of thought. It's also why I'm out here filming at this time of day, because they're about to begin, you know, a display of nationalism, as if this country is the best place in the world to live. I don't know what it's like in America. I shall read up on it later after the fact, but I doubt whether any of the parties of the Western nations are going to ignore this chance to sort of make, you know, good photo ops and stuff like that, of celebrations of bravery, despite the fact that politicians are the least authorised to actually talk about people's bravery and how people bravely died, because one thing you never ever see is someone in politics during a war quitting their post during the war in order to go and actually fight. They might be reassigned to a desk job within the military, but very rarely, and I'm saying very, very rarely, do they ever give up everything that they have, which, let's face it, is dependent on the successful winning of said war, because if they lose the war, they'll lose all the things they had and all the power. So yeah, so I feel super uncomfortable with this display of patriotism right in the middle of a political scandal-struck storm of, incompetence. Isn't it interesting how all the more socialist countries have dealt with their COVID-19 breakdown a lot more effectively? I don't know. I mean, sort of like when I say socialist countries, I'm talking about Germany, I'm talking about France, talking about, the Scandinavian countries. I'm even talking about Canada in some respects, where part of the political training seems to be people are wealth. Your basic economic unit as a nation, even though nation is a really stupid concept, but we'll leave that for the time being. Your basic economic unit of health is an human, what makes stuff and creates value. So at the very least we could look after them. And that's what got me into, I think the more thoughtful end of punk. There is in punk music there is the basic, I hate this shit, we need to set fire to it, and that's all laudable. And then the other side of punk is, what do we do about it? And a very few punk bands have suggested what might happen, or what might be done. Isn't it weird that we only really start, showing any benefit to musicians is when they become famous, and artists, when their work is extremely valuable and generating tax income. But we don't care to help plant the seeds of that music anywhere. It has to happen in the absence of the state, and it has to happen more or less as a response to how the state treats people. How messed up is that? We do nothing to formulate your musical intentions of your artistic response to a fucked up world. We do nothing to help you maintain a standard of living while you become talented at what you do, and while you're making your message accessible to as many people as possible, so they will buy your artwork, or buy your music, or watch your film, or listen to what you have to say. We don't care about you until you're a money generating commodity. You really think Elton John, was always a dyed-in-the-wool royalist, given that he was gay, given that there were laws perpetuated by the state to prevent it from being legal for him to love who he wanted to? You don't think that some of his earlier stuff is more reactive to an oppressive state that he couldn't bear? The members of Queen became so, status fluid when they were super popular. But really, listen to the early stuff from Queen, it's all quite reactionary. It's all quite stuff broken and it's not right. I really think, however middle class a gay person it was, that they would have been okay with the status quo, having to live their lives in secret for decades. No. But all of a sudden they are acceptable because they're wealthy. And wealth is the passport to power. It's how you spend your money, and what you talk about, given that you now have a massive audience, is important. So those people get invited to do gigs at the White House and number 10 Downing Street and all those sorts of places. Yeah. That's all kind of fucked up. But let's stop there. Okay? That's how, I recommend Grayson Perry's, The Business of Art lectures on the BBC. And I also recommend the Crass documentary about a punk band that formed a commune and tried to, utilise creativity to change the world. And like I was talking about yesterday, it doesn't matter if they weren't successful. They managed to get a few steps down the road and learn those things so we don't have to learn them at the expense of the success of our project. So yeah, that's why I don't feel that something like the culture could never happen. I just feel like it would be difficult. And maybe even something like the culture needs to fail big time. You know, in order for the thing that comes along after the culture, you know, maybe that's a subversive lesson that you might find in the early teachings of Jesus. Ooh, if you're going to go down the Christianity route, you've got to know about John the Baptist. I am not the prophet, and I am not important, said John the Baptist. I'm just here to point out the guy when he turns up. And that'll be the guy that will change everything. Because people tried to treat him as a holy person, and he was like, oh no. This is my baptizing and cleansing you for when that person does come, and explaining the political point. You know, maybe in real life and real social movements, we have to have many such people before one person manages to make the end play. You know, there have to be blitzers and blockers and people to find out where you can succeed and in what way you can succeed. The Black Panthers taught us it's quite easy to get a whole bunch of people on side if you do something suitably dramatic. If you ape television and movies, if you wander around with guns in the manner of a white person in the 1960s in Oakland. You wander about with a gun like a police officer does, because it's not actually illegal, otherwise it'd be illegal for the police officers to do it. Oh, they've changed that since. So, you need to push forward. But, the only worthy reason to push forward is not the aggrandizement you might get, or the fame you might get, or the money you might get. It's the fact that somewhere down the line, things could get significantly better. We've all benefited from that. We've benefited from the suffragettes. Might sound like if you're a bloke you didn't benefit from the suffragettes, but the suffragettes also brought about the vote for the working classes, because it didn't exist. What they were trying to do was divide and rule, because a lot of working class men thoroughly agreed with the suffragettes. And then they gave working class men the vote in a bid to, give them the goodies, so they no longer had a reason to support the suffragettes, and that worked. And you'll find that. What they want is a majority consensus, not so they can, help out the majority of people, but so that the number of people complaining about it is fewer. So yeah, okay. So I'm going to stop that. So now, part 2, although I run the risk of not having anything to talk about tomorrow, is all about what you can do. And I'm only figuring this out myself a little bit. I think off-road in the woods. I think if I do this just right, I can hook up with the other trail. So yeah, what can you do? Well, what do you have? Got a pen? Got a piece of paper? So you can be an artist. If you've got a computer and a printer, you can be a graphic designer in your print shop. Got any kind of camera on your computer, or one that you can connect to your computer, or one that you can't? You're a filmmaker. If you've got imagination, you can design and come up with everything. You've also got a computer and the internet. You're a researcher. If you can plant one herb or an edible plant, you're a farmer. If you check stuff out, or you've got 15 quid's worth or 20 quid's worth of electrical testing gear, and hold on. Yeah, sorry about that. You know how I feel about not filming other people or looking like a massive weirdo talking to myself in the woods. So yeah. I'm getting some exercise, but it's hard work climbing those hills. So yeah, if you're watching this, you've got a mobile phone or a computer, you can create, or you can research, you can learn a skill. And that's why, I'm big on learning new skills. They look like hobbies, but, you're in a position where you can look after yourself and help other people. That's not a bad use of your time. Because you never know when one of those skills could come into, good use. At the very least, a lot of skills will save you money because you're not paying someone else to do those skills for you. So, even if all you research is decent nutrition, if you're in better shape, and you're obviously in better shape, you can advise other people. Be careful. Don't accidentally kill anybody, but I think that's at least where Urban Agoge came out on top, because we were honest. We didn't try to make any money out of it. We just did some research into, what was good food, what was nutritious. Still haven't come anything better than eat more food, eat less crap. Food standing for fruit and veg, organic lean proteins. There's another thing. Omega oils and omega vitamins, and to drink more water. That's pretty obvious. And eat less crap is less carbonated drinks, less refined sugars, less processed food, and less additives. That's pretty obvious, but it's too obvious for most people to grasp onto. But I proved it. I mean, I put on all the weight again because I've been living a crappy lifestyle for the last month or couple of months. But yeah, and I tried being vegan. Yep. So yeah, so look at what do you have in your house, especially during this lockdown period. So what I'm going to do today is there may be a short part 2 of this video. I want to show you the radio setup for one, because I think that's relatively interesting. That's self-provided communications, which I think you'll find interesting. And yeah, maybe I'll write down a list of the things I'm capable of doing with the stuff I have around me now. So yeah, and some of that stuff is as a result of you guys continuing to be helpful on Patreon. And if you're watching this for the first time and you think that some dude wandering around in the woods sharing his thoughts and doing interesting stuff and learning new skills and basically becoming more competent, or you want to help fund something like the culture so that being skint isn't the reason why I don't make a video, then step on in. Ironically, there's a certain amount of self-fulfilling prophecy that comes about from doing stuff like this. So yeah, I wanted to do more hours this time last year. I got more hours. It's really paying off for me now because I'm furloughed and I'm getting 100% of my average pay. So I'm doing very well indeed. And a couple of months ago I wanted time. Well, blow me, it was expensive time, but I do have it. So yeah. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. Hope you found that interesting, but have a look around your house, figure out what it is you could do for yourself, what services you can provide for yourself and others with what you have knocking around. So yeah, part 2 of this video may be filmed later today, and it will be along with the radio thing. And yeah, got to think about that, what it is we can actually do. I mean, if Crass managed to get a commune going in the 1970s and 80s without the kind of technology we've got lying around, what could we do with the technology we've got lying around? And with our understanding, with our connection to the internet, with our access to information, what do you think we can do? So yeah, give that some thought. Thanks for watching, do take care. Where am I going? Who's coming with me? And never get the order messed up. See you later, people.